Get ready for peak autism infotainment. Thrilling topics, amazing guests, great laughs, and autism.
On the Spectrum, an autistic podcast.
Welcome to another amazing episode of On the Spectrum. I am Serge, and this is my co-host,
Protector.
Protector?
I don't have a fucking
Serge
reference
Protector?
for that. I do not have a fucking joke.
Sorry,
or-
Sven. My name is Sven.
Yes.
Sven Longmyon. My name is Sven Longmyon. I have some. What's that fish that they eat over there? The something stringer.
Oh, I don't know the name.
The one
of it.
that's in a can, fermented fish.
Oh,
that stinks
God.
really bad.
The horrible tasting fucking fermented fish. But anyway, I am Nick. This is Steve, and we're on the Spectrum podcast. Yes, it's been a while since we put out an episode, but that's okay. We have lives, and we're people. But as
Mostly, I
always
just
do-
didn't feel like talking to you. No, I'm
Yeah,
just
that's probably true.
kidding. By
actually.
talking to you, I just meant the audience. But
Yes, he meant me. But as I always do for most episodes, at least me and Steve do not presume to be experts of anything whatsoever, except for being ourselves. So weirdly enough, actually, I'm going to cut myself off on that. Somebody actually, I was doing a live on TikTok with somebody the other day, and they actually said, I really appreciate the fact that you say that in episodes, that you and Steve do not presume to be experts, because there's far too many TikTok experts that exist in the world. And I said, well, we're not experts. I mean, we know some stuff. And I pointed out that I do have a background in psychology, but I don't generally, when I'm online, I don't bring that up very often. And one of the reasons why is because even if you have a fucking doctorate in fucking psychology, there's still parts of psychology, there's still parts of autism, parts of human behavior that you're going to be ignorant about. And so we generally don't talk about that part. We generally just talk
science
from our
always
points of
is
view.
an evolving
Yes,
subject.
exactly.
So
Exactly. So anyway,
I found out
appreciate
some
that they
research
said-
this week
they said
that was interesting.
Yeah, what's that?
So there's a claim online going around about kimchi helping to remove microplastics in your gut. And so when I did further looking into it,
Kimchi is in the cabbage?
yeah. So apparently, here's the thing. There is truth to it. People have been saying it around, like I've been seeing stuff about it online. There's truth to it, but it hasn't been 100% confirmed in humans, but in mice it does.
Okay.
So I don't know who's out there feeding mice kimchi, but apparently it's actually not, I don't think they're feeding them kimchi, but there's a probiotic that's in kimchi
Okay.
that apparently binds to plastics in your gut.
Uh-huh.
So you just poop out the plastic.
Okay.
Which I thought was interesting.
It's kind of like fiber with, was it cholesterol?
Sure. But
it binds to it and you can
so it helps remove microplastics from your gut, apparently. Well,
Okay.
allegedly, because I don't think they
Allegedly.
have proof in humans yet, but it makes sense because the probiotic binds to it in mice and their gut, so it should theoretically do the same with us.
Sure. I can't wait to see that bit of research at some point,
Yeah.
or more of it.
My
that will
point was
come.
that I'm just saying that
Yeah.
information changes.
As it does, as it will. And I'm not trying to invalidate anybody's PhD in whatever the fuck. I mean, you are well researched and you are well studied, but
I have a
shit
PhD
changes.
and fuck around and find outery.
Oh, isn't that nice? A lot of males like to claim that bullshit.
Fuck around and find out, bro.
Oh my good God. Oh my good
Fuck
God.
around and find out.
Oh my God.
Hey, I swore.
What the fuck are we talking
You're
about?
usually
Oh,
the
right.
swearing one.
I am. I swear a lot. I really do. I'm rather off-putting to a lot
You
of
make
people.
Jesus cry with your cursing.
I do. I make Jesus cry for a lot of reasons. None of them are good. But today, we haven't recorded for a while, and that's because we have lives. And because we have a lot of other stuff we're doing.
going on.
And actually, one of the things that I thought might be a good idea for today's episode is because a lot of people who are autistic and a lot of people who are just neurodivergent in general happen to be highly creative people. They're artists and stuff. And so I thought it might be a good idea for me and Steve to talk about our art, or rather our creative sides and how we manage it and how we kind of can't come about doing what we do, even though we are autistic. Yes, we're low support need autistics, relatively speaking. Steve also has the ADHDs. and I've got the bipolars. But how, even with those things going on about us that make us different than other people, how do we go about Steve being a writer and me being a performer, an actor, and both of us do improv. And so I thought it might be interesting and maybe helpful to other people to kind of hear two actors and writers and improvisationalists talk about how we not only overcome when we're having difficulties, but also how do we utilize that to help us build characters? How do we help? How does that help us be able to pull off our creative art? And I definitely wanted to do that, especially because Steve, and I'm going to brag for you, Steve actually has a full-length play that will be debuting in February with a community theater group in Rhode Island. It'll be awesome. People should go see it. He's a wonderful writer, but it'll be his first full-length play that will be produced.
Technically, the Christmas play was 90 minutes long, but
so we're going to say this is his first full-length play.
the Christmas one was a bit of a weird thing, but it was a full-length play.
It was a full-length. You are correct. It was a full-length play. But I'm going to say this is actually your first full-length play because that one was a hodgepodge of fun.
Yeah, but this one is also a bit unconventional.
It is.
And that's why I say, like, when I was talking to you earlier, I was saying, like, there's I'm reading up on, like, professional processes that people use for writing stories and all that, like whether it's a book or a screenplay or whatever. But part of the reason I'm doing that is because normally the writing process is a little bit easier for me when I have an idea. The problem with this one is because I'm trying to accomplish some things that are strange, and also it makes it a little bit more difficult considering this is like one of my first full-length plays because I've written a lot of one acts and like short plays. So I'm writing this would be my second 2-act, right? And you know, you would think I would make it easier on myself and write a more like straightforward traditional play.
Not at all.
But I'm doing something weird, of course, which makes it harder because there's elements of improv. And then I'm making it immersive where I want even the concessions to be themed. Like on Ancient Aliens, they talk about, there's an episode where they talk about ambrosia from like mythology being a drink of the gods.
So his play is called South Coast Contact, and it's about an alien convention. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I wanted like for drinks, I want to sell ambrosia, stuff like that. So I want it to be themed, and the people coming to see the show are attendees of the convention.
Yes.
Now, obviously, recent development, I want to incorporate more story into it rather than it just being a series of lectures. So there'll be behind the scenes stuff. So I have to balance that. So it's an immersive show where people are audience members for an actual convention, but then when we're seeing backstage with the actors talking to each other, how do I blend the two where like, okay, the audience knows now that they're like flies on the wall versus being active participants.
Right. So I will say that you're actually bringing up one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is because we as neurodivergent folk, we have a tendency of overly complicating shit. We do. I mean, honest to God, like think about it for your own art. We overcomplicate stuff, whether it's because we overthink it at the beginning and then we don't end up starting it, or we add in a whole bunch of shit that we don't necessarily need to. And I'm not saying you don't need to add this. I think it's a great idea for your second play.
Well, if I do it just have, even if I kept the improv, but just kept it like a normal convention, like you go to Comic-Con and you see a panel, right? And everybody gets up and maybe you have different people speak or Q&A. I could just do that. But my problem with doing that is I feel like I can make it funny and entertaining, but if narratively, it would be very weak. And I feel like that would prevent it from being something that's fun and entertaining versus something that's memorable and something that other theaters would want to produce.
Which is the ultimate goal, right? Is to get it out there to more theaters.
So I want to do, then in order for me to take it from just a series of lectures I have all these weird characters who are, well, I'm judging them, but they're supposed to be people who are like alien. Like you have a character who's a alien psychic medium who talks to aliens. You have a stereotypical like whistleblower guy who works for the Pentagon.
Let's not give away too much of the story.
You have all these characters. It's inspired by people like Stephen Greer, Bob Lazar, and then like the Ancient Aliens people.
Yeah, it's alien folk.
It's it's inspired by those type of people. So rather than just the audience coming in and having a panel and it being interactive and they do parts that are improvised, like a Q&A and all that. I thought that would be fun. And it would be funny, especially like I have a whole lecture. I have a part where I want the guy who's playing the lead to improvise a story where he talks about eating alien meat.
His first time eating alien meat.
Right. So I'm gonna not script that part.
Yeah.
And I'll just let the actor have to talk to the audience about it. So I thought that would be funny. But how do you take it to the next level? And so I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I have to figure out a way to add more of a story, because I had like the general through line would be that there's a big reveal. Like I have information, like breaking information that no one's had before. We have whatever that is. Like we have new proof of ETs or whatever.
Right.
There's some like underlying thing where there's an announcement towards the beginning of the play, and it lets the audience know like we have a big reveal coming, like a big announcement. But to make it more than just that, I feel like I needed to have the behind the scenes stuff, which you could differentiate it maybe with lighting. I was thinking of having
change the scene.
Well, I was thinking of having a set that rotates.
Yeah.
But to let the audience know, hey, don't talk now. Different lighting in the behind the scenes.
Right.
And when we flip the scene back and it's actually the convention stage and somebody giving a lecture, the audience is allowed to participate in those sections when the characters will talk to them directly, like a TED Talk.
Right, and you can actually tell the audience ahead of time that there are points of audience
Oh,
interaction.
I didn't mention one of my favorite things is I want there to be instead of a program, we would have a pamphlet we hand out, and the pamphlet / program would have like different information about aliens and stuff in it. So it'd be like you're actually attending a convention, and the person handing it out is actually a character in the show,
which is a great idea to make it more immersive.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, like you're kind of merging a bunch of different things that you like to do together. You're merging your writing and performing and improv and all of that together. And I think it's a really cool idea that you're doing it, but it takes somebody, in my opinion, who is that level of creative. Right. And I think the fact that you are autistic kind of adds to that, because the amount of directors that I've worked with in community theater who do things the basic taught way to do them, and they all pretty much think they're being, creative, but they're really not. They're doing like the most standardized way of doing things, but you look at things a different way. So how did you... Obviously, the characters you said are inspired by real people, but how did you come up with the variety of them? Because you have like 5 or 6 different characters in this. So how did you come up with those?
The initially, so the characters are inspired by people. They're not all inspired by one individual person, but for instance, there's a character who's an alien psychic medium. And that character, I got the idea from when I was scrolling through one of the streaming apps. And I think it was like one of the free ones, like Tubi. And they had a section of documentaries, and they had, I was watching a bunch of extraterrestrial, like, what do you call it? Like, like cryptids and like weird stuff, like ghosts and all that. So I was looking through all those type of documentaries, and there's a whole series of videos you can watch of alien psychic mediums who talk to extraterrestrials on other planets psychically. And they even like do readings. So like that character, it just, I got the idea just from seeing people who do that.
Alien psychic medium. Jesus.
So think of like, what's that lady that you saw? What's her face?
Maureen?
Yeah. Like Maureen Hancock, but like, but
she's
but
a
aliens
medium in the local area.
Instead of ghosts, it's aliens.
Yeah.
The other one, there's Gertrude, who is a professor of extraterrestrial gender studies. And that idea, I just thought of, it would be funny to have somebody who's like a TikToker. So this character is a professor at a university who teaches extraterrestrial gender studies. And they believe that the next frontier for human rights is alien rights, like ET rights. And so they're an advocate for ET rights, and they talk about alien biology and sex and gender. And then I thought it'd be funny if they're like a TikTok star, like somebody who's famous on TikTok and records TikTok.
So how
videos.
did you come up with the basis for the characters? I mean, you gave a little bit, you saw somebody who was an alien psychic medium, but like, why did you choose one of them to be a social media influencer?
Because I see a lot of, I apologize to our TikTok audience, but I see a lot of stupid shit on TikTok.
I think they know. I think TikTok knows there's a lot
Even
of stupid shit
on Instagram
TikTok.
as well. There's a lot of weird foo-foo, weird shit. And I just thought it'd be funny. Like, people kind of poke fun at gender studies anyway. Like,
They do.
I'm not saying one or the other, I'm not
yeah.
making fun of feminists or anything like that. I just, but I think, how do you take that idea and make an extreme version of it?
Right.
So it's like taking like something that's real, gender studies professor, but like, how do I'm poking fun at it kind of, but it's like making an extreme version.
Right.
It's like if you take make a progressive character, but it's a caricature or like an extreme version of a progressive character.
Yes.
So it's poking fun at that character type or that trope of a very progressive liberal character, but making them extreme.
Well, I mean, honest to God, if aliens do ever show up, there will be somebody who is a extraterrestrial gender study
And it's not
professor.
it's not a partisan thing too, because I have characters that I've written in the past that make fun of conservatives.
Yes, he makes fun of just about everything. But I just think the writing process is interesting for you specifically because you at one point used to just kind of sit down and write it. And now you're trying a different approach.
Well, most of my scripts, I do all of the character development, creation, relationships. The outline is a lot of times in my head. So like the one that I just directed, Night Swimming, was a one act that I wrote. And I already knew, I had a rough idea of like where I want it to begin, where it's going to go, and how it's going to end.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's like details that are missing from that, but I had a good idea. There's 3 main characters, and I had a good idea of who those characters were. And so I didn't do a lot of outlining or anything. I really just started writing. Like, I knew I wanted it to take place because it was written as a one act, and I knew when they were going to perform it that they would have to be a very minimal set. So I'm like, the whole thing takes place inside someone's apartment. It's like a living room. And that's basically it. I'm like, all right, these people are hanging out. How would these people actually talk? And so I'm just picturing it in my head. I'm picturing these characters like this is them interacting. Right. What would I do? What did I do in my early 20s? Because these characters are hanging out in the living room. He comes in, they're cracking open a beer, they're playing video games, they're joking around about stuff, as you do.
And one of the characters is also autistic, so I want to point that out.
Yeah, the character that keeps constantly citing weird facts and
that wonderful bit of.
And it may be a little bit of a cliche,
sure.
but the character's based on. Not based, but it's influenced by me. And so the character has a lot of my traits, and I used to do that. So even though it is kind of a cliche for like an autistic person to rattle off facts or info dump.
You say used to.
Well, I guess I still do. But yeah, but that's real. That's how I am. So like the character does that, and his friends kind of poke fun at him for it because he constantly in the script will they're trying to have a serious conversation, and every single time that's the whole point of the story is that he's struggling. He's clearly struggling with depression and anxiety and things like that. And every time his friends try to get him to open up, he changes the subject and deflects and starts talking about random facts and shit.
Right.
And that's basically the whole story.
He intellectualizes and puts himself in his head opposed to talking about how he feels.
Like his friends asking him about
away from how he feels.
His friends asking him about a promotion opportunity at work, and instead he starts talking about microplastics and how they're in all parts of your body.
In the balls. In fact, and
there's a whole joke about microplastics being in the balls and semen.
Yeah. So I've actually seen it a couple of times, and it is a really good one act. I enjoy it because Steve does a really good job at using that intellectualization that the character is using to deflect away from the way they feel. But the audience still understands that that the character is hurting, and it's really nice. It's well written. I like it. I mean, obviously I like it. Dude's my buddy. But
it did well enough that I got an opportunity to write another show. So
that's exactly right.
So I submitted it to a one act festival. And so the whole reason I'm writing this alien show, well, not the whole reason, but the main reason.
Right.
I submitted my play to a one act festival, got accepted, and it did really well. And the board and the guy, the creative director or whatever, they both really liked it. So they asked me if I wanted to submit any other scripts to them. And also they heard about the alien idea I had. So. But they also asked me for other scripts that I've written in the past because they're considering doing more of my shows.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, because you're a very creative guy. And you're in the process of writing constantly.
But I want to get better.
So that's where I was about to go with this. So we're all creative people to a degree, but what do we do about it and how do we get better? One of the things I see online often when it comes to autistic folk is they talk about how do you learn NT world, NT communication, how do we get better at making friends, how do we get people to like us well enough so we can do the things that we want to do. I hear a lot of people complain about that. And so one of the things I was going to mention about this is not only did Steve put himself out there and submit this one act to a local theater that actually neither one of us have really had a lot of contact with.
Oh, you sent me the post.
Oh, I did, because I saw it randomly on Facebook. But neither one of us have ever performed with them.
No.
Well, not fully, but never really performed with them.
I didn't know anybody there.
Yeah, and so he just submitted to it. But while he was there, he identified the opportunity to talk about this other idea he had.
That's not even really how it happened. I just was talking about it organically because I talk a lot.
Okay, so yes, you identified an opportunity to say it to somebody.
I guess, but that wasn't going through my head like, hey, I might have an opportunity to do this with them. I was just telling Chris about other ideas I had just because I like overshare information. He was the one who was like, oh, I really like that idea. And I was surprised because when you think of like community theaters and stuff like that, that doesn't seem like the type of thing that a lot of community theaters would like. It's a weird idea. You know what I mean?
Yeah, community theater people like weird, dude.
I was surprised by the fact that he was so into the whole alien thing.
Yeah, I'm not.
But like if I mentioned it to Tim or people at TPAC, I feel like they would be like, okay, like the whole idea.
Some of them might, and others would go, huh, that's something I haven't seen before. So anyway, apparently it was all happenstance and there was no control whatsoever. There was nothing anybody can glean from it. Steve just happened to be speaking out loud at the right moment. I'm trying to give you credit for some shit, guy.
Well, do you want to know how it actually happened? Oh, hold on. So I was after the performance that Chris and Bree and Katie came to. I was in the hallway and Chris asked me about South Coast because he's like, oh, how's the writing coming along for that? And Chris was standing right next. And I already mentioned the idea to him. And after I mentioned it to them, I was like, hey, I don't know. I wanted to submit it for TPAC, but I don't know what's going to go on because the deadline to submit stuff is up and blah, blah, blah. Like maybe we can do it with the collective eventually, something like that. Chris overheard, was eavesdropping, and then came over to me afterwards and was like, hey, we have an opening in, but yeah, like I wasn't doing it on purpose though.
So
I'm just saying, like, I wasn't trying to
when he came over to you, you could have gone, oh no, it's a stupid idea. I don't want to do it.
No.
But instead somebody said, oh, hey, there's this thing. I have a spot open in February, and then you started talking about it.
Yeah,
So you could have said, no, I don't even have it written, and you could have just completely blown him off.
Yeah, he knows that I don't have it done yet.
Yeah, well, because you ended up talking about it.
Yeah.
But you could have completely blown him off. You didn't. You did see the opportunity.
I'm just saying, like, I wasn't like
out of it.
being calculating and trying to,
Okay. So then I'm going to turn it into that, and
that's more you.
People should
like being calculating
for opportunities.
You're more the calculating one.
I don't look for opportunities.
I just have a big mouth, and I was talking about it. But I wasn't like, hey, maybe if I mention this, then they'll do it.
No, I'm not saying that either, because that conversation could have gone two different directions, Steve. And instead of it going the direction of self-doubt and self-loathing and saying nobody would want to do my idea, instead, when he said, hey, what was this thing? You decided to tell him about it.
Yeah.
And so that is being opportunistic to a degree. Not like I would. I purposely look for the right people to tell certain ideas to. I'm always acutely aware of opportunities to say certain things to certain people, to network stuff. You're right. I do that. But in this case, you could have gone either direction. You chose that direction. And I'm going to say to anybody who also is a writer, you got to look for your opportunities. To be able to tell the right people.
You gotta also put yourself out there. Like if you want to act, just get your feet wet. Just go do it. Even if you fumble, if you suck at the
and so this would be my side of
if you
all
suck
of
at the auditioning, whatever, like just go do it. Just try.
Okay. So that's where my side of this conversation comes in, which is performance, right? Steve is, yes, he acts at times, and yes, he's in the improv group, but Steve is really a writer at heart. Like, he is absolutely more of a writer than he is any other type of performance, right? Any other kind of creative art. Steve is a writer. Steve looks at things from a writing perspective. He talks about things from a writing perspective. I'm a performer, okay? And in that regard, if you are also a performer, an actor, I don't like calling myself a fucking actor because, actors are fucking a certain way, and I don't like actors much. But I'm a performer. And if you are also, you have to be opportunistic to a degree. When you see the audition notice, you just go to it. And if you say to yourself, well, I don't know if anybody's going to like my acting, it's not up to you to decide. You've just got to go, right? And if you never get a part, you never get a part. But you have to be willing to never get a part.
Or be willing to do bad auditions. Like,
Well, I mean, but a bad audition gets you no part. But
well,
you have to be okay with it.
But if
You have
you're
to be
saying if you
willing
don't
to
have a
do
lot
that.
of experience, your first auditions are probably going to suck anyway. But just
Probably.
just throw yourself out there.
So here's
Because the more you audition,
yeah.
the easier it gets.
relatively.
My
relatively.
experience. I don't get nervous for auditions anymore because I've done so many of them.
Well, yes, but I will say that, like, what I was going to say when it comes to performance is you, with your writing, you did just buy some books to try to educate yourself to get better at it, right?
Actually, there was something I wanted to mention about that, but I don't want to derail you from the performing thing. There's something I thought
that's okay,
of.
because I was going to focus on you for a little bit longer, but then you started talking about doing auditions.
Well, so
We'll
one of the
go
things
back
that's
to performing
interesting
in a
is
minute.
I was looking into, so before I bought any books,
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out, well, what book should I buy? And the reason I'm reading the one that I started reading now, it's called The Anatomy of Story, is because from what I understand, it's a good book for somebody who already has experience but wants to get better.
Right.
It's not
Which
like
is what you are.
It's not for somebody who has like no experience or is like completely green, you know. That book Story, right? That one. That's more for somebody who has no experience and wants to learn everything there is to like all the basics of writing.
Yeah.
This is more advanced. It's about like, all right, this is how you go from writing a decent story to writing a great story. So that's what interested me about that one, because like I already know how to like formulate a story and I have a good idea of pacing and characters and all that, but how do I make it better?
Yes.
And one of the things I noticed is I've obviously only started reading that one book, but I've flipped through and read the gist of the other ones that I bought. A lot of these people talk about, and these teachers talk about, like an organic process of writing a story rather than it being forced. Like forcing your will on the characters to hit the beats that you want versus letting things happen organically in the story when you create good characters, right? But what's funny to me is that's how I write anyway.
I know it is.
Like I let the characters lead the story. Like when I was writing Night Swimming, I told you I had a good idea of what was going to happen, but I didn't have like beat for beat, how am I going to do it?
No.
I just started writing and I let the characters lead me there.
Right.
And one of the things they talk about in that book that I'm reading now is he says that anybody can write and anybody can write stories, and there's a lot of decent stories out there, but the stories that are memorable and creative, like it's hard to write a great story. And the reason it's hard to write a great story is some of the things that make great stories great are hard to teach. You can teach all the basics,
Yes.
but there's certain things that make great stories great. And a lot of that is, he talks about, it's hard for people to let go and do that organic process. And it's hard to teach that because people feel like they want to, they almost make it mechanical. Like you have to hit this beat and this beat, this beat. You have to have a climax and you have to have this. They worry about all these little pieces that are supposed to be in a story rather than just letting the story happen.
So you started with he said, or at least you said at one point, he says anybody can write, right?
Yeah.
And I've heard that when it comes to acting and painting and all this other stuff. Anybody can do these things. No, I don't believe that's true.
Well, he said anybody can do it, but
Here's
not everybody
why.
can do it great.
Well, that's so I will say that, can anybody put words down on a fucking page, whether it's type it out, write it out? Can they do that? Yes. But can they put together a cohesive story? Not necessarily good or bad. I don't want to put any moral
I
judgment
think
on it.
everybody can come up with a
But can
basic
they?
story.
I don't think anybody can.
Like the mouse walked down the street, went to the shop, like think of a kid's story. I think anybody can do that.
I think there are people who would struggle with that because that's not necessarily their art. Okay. And I think there has to be some level of standard. And I'll apply this to acting as well, just performing in general. But I'll apply this to acting in a minute too. If you happen to end up being good at writing, okay, or decent at writing, cool. Like in your regard, you started reading the book and realized you're already doing some of the stuff they're talking about, right? You
Well, that
found
was
your
my
way to it.
That was my point. Is I thought it was funny that what he's saying is hard to teach people is those things he's mentioning are things that I already do. But where I'm lacking is some of the structure.
Yeah.
The structure that people put in ahead of time. That's the easy part. And that's the part that I miss. Well, not the easy, but it's the part that like when you take a class, it's like the stuff that you learn, like the basic skeleton. That's the stuff that I don't really do because I have it all up here and I just write it on the paper. Right. But I am doing the creative process that a lot of these teachers recommend, which is when you have those ideas, like instead of forcing things to happen, you let things kind of happen organically as the story tells itself.
So I actually think, because something you just said, which is, some of that fundamental stuff that people would learn in a class, you didn't necessarily have, right? Which is very similar, in my opinion, to the way a lot of autistic folks on the internet, they try to learn about neuropsychology or just psychology in general or about autism. They lack some of the fundamental basics to allow them to understand some of the more complex stuff to it. And in this regard, like you're going back to learning some of the fundamentals of how to structure stuff to move forward, right? Outline, character web, all that jazz, right? And I think that's going to benefit you long term because some of the things that are harder to teach, you already figured out how to make that happen. And so now you're going to get a lot better structure.
I think a lot of that is just because I grew up writing since from a little kid, like around 10 years old, I started writing short stories. I used to write a short story every week when I was in middle school.
Okay.
And I think a lot of those things just happened organically.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything to back up this idea.
I hate that word so much.
Sorry,
it's not any of you out there, and it's not him. I fucking hate hearing that word.
I think it's because of. So I was gonna say I don't have any evidence to back this up, and there might be something that exists, but I think that it has a lot to do with people who are good at playing imagine or pretend. Mm-hmm. If you're good at playing pretend or imagining, like if you're a kid who had a very vivid imagination, I think that those pieces that these teachers are talking about, that's hard to teach.
Yeah.
Actually, his whole premise for the book is that he doesn't believe it's impossible to teach those things, even though they're very hard. And that's why he has it laid out in so many small steps to try to get people to like visualize their stories that way.
He thinks it's hard to teach somebody how to organically do this stuff.
Right. Because it's much easier to teach people like general layouts and like general story structure and character webs. But like when you get into the nitty gritty of it, like making a story go from okay to like amazing stories, they have certain things in common.
Or at least amazing in his opinion.
They have certain things in common.
Yeah.
But I would say if you're somebody who had like a vivid imagination as a kid, if you are the type of person who can like, I would say like I can visualize like a movie in my head and picture these characters and how they talk and their mannerisms. Right. If you're somebody who has that, I think that a lot of those things will come to you easier versus if you're not the type of person who thinks that way, then I think those things would be harder.
Yes, I agree. And I will say, because I could make the joke of like, well, then how come I'm not better at writing stories? Because I daydreamed a lot and I played pretend a lot when I was a kid. But I think it's the perspective in which we take. I'm assuming when you would daydream as a kid and when you would do moments of fantasy, you were telling the story. I was in the story. Like I know full well I was in the story all the time, right? And I think that's probably what made me a decent performer. Is I was in my story or I was putting myself in the story opposed to telling the story.
I think I did a mix of both, but
you're also an actor. I'm just trying to make. Because there's probably a lot of folks who are autistic out there who listen to this show who also daydreamed a lot.
Like I had a whole mythology when I was in middle school.
Yeah.
My friends and I used to draw these comic characters and I had a whole cast of characters. I had villains and I used to draw them and I used to make comics and I turned my friends into characters. Like I had this friend named Bobby and I turned him into the Bobinator. He was like this big muscular dude. I had all these robots. That I used to draw, but like and they all had different personalities. So like that's just something I've always done. Yeah. But I don't know. It was a thought to me that like if you're the type of kid who has a wild imagination like that, I think when you grow up, if you write that a lot of those things come easier because you're just kind of like watching a movie or a play or a story in your head, and you're just taking the story that's happening in here and just spreading it on paper.
Right. So back to what I just said a minute ago, because you just said the exact same thing I just said, but you said, I don't know if that's true. You just said you're playing the movie in your head. You're playing the story out, right?
Yeah.
But that means you're seeing the story happen. I, as a performer, put myself in the story.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch the story. I was in the story.
Well, when I write, I'm watching
Right.
the story. But yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, like, I imagine myself as like a superhero and stuff as a kid.
I was trying
as
to
well,
make that something that other people could relate to and, a way to use it. But hey, all right. So anyway, where was I going?
Tropes?
Yeah, that derailed me a little bit. That's all right. But no, I think it's wonderful that you're able to, because there are times where both of us as in our creative arts, both of us have had times where we couldn't muster the energy to be able to work on that stuff. And I know there are times for myself when I'm in rehearsal time for a play that I'm doing, that there are days where I can't muster enough energy to get to rehearsal, let alone to even rehearse, which is a problem because I'm letting down the rest of the cast, which I somewhat care about. But I got to take care of me in that regard. Like when there are times when you are writing, or even when you're acting and you're starting to hit that wall where you don't have a lot of energy, what do you do? What do you do to help yourself with it? Or do you just kind of push through and make yourself do it?
It depends. I think with writing, it's hard. It's easier if I have a deadline. I think I get kind of ADHD when it comes to writing because it's like a lot of ADHD kids will do things last minute. Like you don't do it until you have to do it. They procrastinate, and that's kind of how I am with writing. Like I'll have a million ideas, and I have notes kind of scattered around everywhere about what I want to write about. But until I feel that pressure to do it, it's easier for me to just kind of like, I'll do it later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, doing lines, you can't do that. Like you can't wait until the last minute to do it. You can't wait until you feel the pressure. I mean, you have to start working lines long before that. What?
There's been a lot of plays that I've done, even with you, where I didn't have my lines down until like last minute.
And it showed. Yeah. I'm just saying. Because again, he's a writer more than he's a performer.
No, it's such, I get bored going through my lines. It's hard for me to stay focused on it.
Well, then how do you?
I have to force myself to, especially the part that motivates me is like when I start falling behind in rehearsals and then I feel like a piece of shit. That motivates me because like I don't want to.
So shame and guilt motivate you to do better.
Yes, because then I'm like I don't want to look bad.
Wow.
Because I look bad like if I go to rehearsal and everybody else is off book and I'm not. I feel like it makes me look bad, but then I'm also making it harder for my scene partner because if I'm in a scene with them and I'm still on book and I'm struggling, like it kind of takes you out of the scene as the other actor when the other person's like, and then the moon, because they're reading, so it's like, I feel like I'm letting other people down. Yeah. So I don't want to let other people down and I don't want to negatively impact other people. So that's a motivating factor for me to like, hey, I need to fucking catch up on my stuff.
So you heard it here. It is effective to get people to do better at things by shaming them and guilting them into doing it.
I mean, I think it's a motivating factor for a lot of people with ADHD or autism as well.
I think to a degree, but I also think that those are negative motivators. I think those are long-term more detrimental than creating routines and establishing, doing that stuff before you end up feeling guilt and shame. I think it's more self-destructive that way because you're shitting on yourself essentially, because you can also look back on your history and go, oh man, I have to let people down before I bother getting up and doing it, right? Well, why not do it before you let somebody down if it affects you so much? So yes, those can be motivating, but are they as motivating as other things? Long-term, potentially not, because you're also doing harm to yourself too. Because people hold on to guilt and shame. And they end up creating like views and images of themselves that are not necessarily true. So with that, yes, guilt and shame can motivate a person to get some shit done, but is it also as good a quality as it could be? Right. And that's the other side of it. So when I say you got to work in your lines well ahead of time, I'm saying this from doing both sides of it. I've done what Steve's describing. I have taken my time to not learn my lines until the last fucking minute.
I also know that I'm not as like I would be a better actor if I study my lines and it was off book faster, because then it gives me more time to play and be in character. Because the part where you're just doing blocking and all that's kind of boring.
So let me switch over to my side for talking about doing performance as an autistic person. For one, I used to just get up there and act and learn my lines, all that kind of shit, right? And I would do it last minute and shit. And I would always make sure that I never failed opening night. So I knew my lines by opening night, which is a fucking failure as an actor. You should know your lines long before that. But I started, like you did, I bought a bunch of books to try to learn better. And actually, I'm currently in the middle of a book called The Power of the Actor. And I'm currently in the middle of listening to that book, and it has 12 steps as an actor to know your lines better, to get better at your character and knowing about your character. And I've gotten better as an actor. And one of the things that I've gotten better at is understanding why you need to do more work ahead of time. It's not just about knowing your lines. It's not just about knowing the meaning of your line. It's also about what you put to that line. It's also about what you put to the scene and understanding your entire context of you in the whole story.
And as a writer, we appreciate when people do that too.
Yeah.
Because then it makes your show better.
Yeah.
Like there's something really great about seeing your script brought to life.
Right.
That's enjoyable, you know?
So when it comes to that, we both sought out how to improve the craft in which we want, right? I sought out books. Yes, it took my wife challenging me to read 6 acting books before I fucking came around to that. But, and you bought a bunch of books. I actually sent you that TikTok video at one point where somebody was talking about, actually I sent you a series of them all talking about, writing, right? From a writer's perspective. And so I was trying to encourage you to do the same, looking into it.
I think part of the reason why I was hesitant to do some of that stuff is because, let me use poetry writing as an analogy, right? Poetry writing, a lot of poetry comes from an emotional place, right? It's usually not something that is as intellectual. I mean, it can be, but a lot of times poetry comes from an emotional place, like music. Mm-hmm. Music usually comes from an emotional place. Yeah. And so when I'm writing, I feel like I don't want to make it too formulaic or too. I think part of my worry about like trying to read books and get better is like I don't want to fall into a trap of trying to follow someone else's formula or someone else's guide. And it's like you have to do X, Y, and Z, and then you make it into something that feels less organic or inorganic, where it's something that's like I'm trying to. And actually, that guy mentions it in the book. He's talking about like writers who go through the process, like they're checking off a checklist. Like I have to hit this, and this. But a lot of times that makes for a boring story if you're just trying to check off boxes.
Well, so I've actually heard that before. I think maybe from you, but also other people, right? And
I'm not saying that what I'm saying is that I need to be more open-minded about like this guy or other books about them giving me advice. But I telling you what my fear was is that it would tell me shit that would not necessarily make me better, but like make me try to fit more into their mold or their idea of what a story is supposed to be.
But their molds work. And I'm not saying you should fit into it what I think the education is good for. Like all of the acting books I've read, okay? I'm on number 8 now, okay? I don't read any of them and go, well, this is the only way I can act. This is what I have to do to be a good actor. But I listen to all of them and the differences in all of them, and I add to what I'm doing already. Some of them, almost all of them, talk about a couple of things specifically that they all agree this is what you should do as an actor to get to know your lines better. And so I want to know that because otherwise I'm basically trying to reinvent the fucking wheel from the beginning, right? I'm trying to learn how to build fire when somebody already knows how to build fire. But what I want to do is I want to make my fire my way, but I need to know how to do it to begin with. And the other part of it is we have a mutual friend who plays music. And that person I once had a conversation with, and they said they don't play music for other people. They don't write songs. They don't make songs. They don't, do it for other people. They're doing it just to express themselves. Then why in the fuck do you release the song? Why in the fuck do you play out publicly? I think anybody who does an art and they are trying to do something publicly with it, you want people to hear it. You want people to experience and enjoy it, which means there has to be a level of you knowing how to do it well.
When I wrote poetry a lot growing up until mostly my 20s. I don't write poetry very often anymore, but it was mainly just for me. I didn't like.
But you also didn't try to put it out there.
Well, eventually I did, but that was because I had friends and other people who read it who encouraged me to share it because they thought it was good.
So,
but I didn't write it for the purpose of sharing with other people. For me, it was more therapeutic. It was like, I'm not good at processing my emotions.
Yeah.
I'm not good at processing my thoughts, and you know this.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that used to help me do that is creative writing. For some reason, writing something in flowery language with poetry
would help me easier for you.
Would help me through my feelings. So like as I'm writing the poem, I'm expressing my feelings.
And I understand that. It's just at some point you decided to put it out into the world.
Yeah.
Right? But up until that moment, you didn't even think to do that, right? It was just for you, right?
Yeah.
But this person puts out songs on the internet. They play out at shows. Like they get booked to play music, right? You're putting it out in the world, which means you're doing it for other people. And so if you're doing it for other people, you should probably know things like what's considered good. You should probably know the fundamentals of how to do it. And this person does, by the way. Like they play guitar and they play rather well. They know how to play, right? They know how to structure a chord. They know, music theory. They know how the notes flow into one another.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing that they learned how to do all of that because now they can put out the music they want to put out their way. Right?
Yeah, I mean, even if it's unconventional.
What?
Even if it's unconventional.
Yeah.
Like it's easier if you want
to know.
If you want to do your own thing, it's easier to do your own thing if you understand the basics.
Yes. Especially because then you can learn how to make it your own. Otherwise you're just putting something together and you're like, oh, it's totally original. And then you find out, no, it's not. And in fact, there are some issues with it, but you wouldn't have necessarily known that there were issues. Right? Yeah. Same thing with acting. Like I'm
well, you know what's
on my
funny
8th book
is that,
and I know somebody's going to say you can't learn acting through a book. And I'm going to point out that an entire BFA program for acting is learning from books and then doing shows. I do community theater too.
I was going to say that as far as like music goes,
that sounded
the
really
funny thing is
of me, didn't it?
If you're making the music, right, having a good understanding of all the fundamentals and music theory and all that stuff is helpful. But it's funny that the same is not true for the person consuming it.
Right.
Because if you hear it, you just know this sounds good or it sounds off.
Yeah.
Like if you hear something, you don't need to be a music expert to know if something sounds off to you. Like you don't have to know what dissonance is to hear dissonance.
No. Yeah, absolutely.
You'll be like, that sounds weird. That sounds off.
I will actually say this. It's actually a good thing that most people don't know the process to be a good actor. They don't know the process of being a good storyteller. They don't know the process of being a good musician. They just know what they like when they like it. Right. Yeah. I think that's a beautiful thing because you don't need to know. Like,
but part of these books are
part
of these books and all of this is understanding why certain things work and they don't.
Yes.
It's like with music theory, like why certain things work together, or why they don't. But then there's also like musicians who are good enough to use things that aren't supposed to work but make them work.
Yes.
Like there's songs that purposely have dissonant chords for effect, things like that. But like they know what they're doing. So
yeah, well, they had to understand how it worked well to understand how to mess with it to make it work overall. Same thing with acting. When anybody can memorize lines, but not everybody can make you feel what that is supposed to say. Not everybody can read it and know the subtext to it. And somebody's going to go, well, anybody can do that. Maybe. But there's a reason why we herald certain people as damn good actors and other people who are mid-range and some people who suck ass and just do community theater their whole life, which will probably be me. But there's a reason why we hold certain people up as being much better at it. And it's not just because they're super formulaic and conform to what it is. It's because they learned all of the basics and then they were able to get better. I'm actually going to shift this. How much time do we have, by the way?
We've been maybe like another 10 minutes.
Okay, great. I'm actually going to shift this into something very specific to neurodivergent people and specifically to people who struggle socially. we are getting better at the thing we want to know because we're reading, and we're reading up on people who have a better understanding of the thing, right? He's reading books written by people who are really good at writing stories. I'm reading acting books written by people who are professional acting coaches, very intelligent actors. They were good in their day for some of them. And I would say find books about how to be social. And specifically, learn from people who are already social the way you want to be social. The reason why I'm kind of bridging these two concepts is because yesterday I came across a video on TikTok, and it was this person talking about how they shouldn't have to get better at social interaction. That everybody else should have to learn how they socialize. And I really badly wanted to post a comment on the video and just say, stop being a lazy fuck. You need to learn their rules too. And I know that's kind of harsh, but I'm kind of a dick.
Well,
If
it's
you've
not how
ever watched the
socializing works.
What do you mean?
Like expecting other people to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
something.
that's not socializing at all. The
That's
thing about
antisocial.
it is, yes. And what I would suggest is, like, if you want, and I'll say it from my perspective, if you want to learn how to socialize better, or if you want to learn how to connect with people better, go pick up an acting book.
What would you do if you were dropped into a foreign country? Let's say,
Oh, please don't even try me on this one.
Let's say-
'cause I already know I'd do well.
well, let's say you're 10 years old.
Yeah.
And you're from the U.S.
Yeah.
And for some reason, we don't need to explain why, you
Right.
magically appear in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're living in Japan. You don't know the language. You don't know the culture. What would you do?
Okay. So if I was 10 years old, I would have sat down and cried because I was 10 and I don't know shit. But taking your hypothetical, okay.
I'm just saying you would learn the culture over time. You would
have
pick
to
up
learn.
on things. You
Yeah.
would learn the language.
You have to
by-
learn.
A lot of people will learn language just exposure, even if
Right.
you're not actively trying to learn it. But if you
Right.
live around people who speak that language long enough, you'll start figuring it out.
And I will say, pick up an acting book or two. I can suggest specific ones if you want. So reach out to us, and I'll suggest specific ones that I think will help. But you have to learn the social norms. And somebody might say, well, I can't see the social norms. Well, that's not completely true, but learn them.
I was going to
And-
say,
and
like,
whether they make sense to you or not, you need to know them anyway.
the Japan example, right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of weird things. Like, for instance, in Japan, it's impolite to hand somebody money.
Yes.
So if you pay for something, you're supposed to put the money down on the
Yeah.
counter.
Or talk on the subway. You're not supposed to talk on the subway. And this one I'm going to specifically say for people like myself who have a hard time shutting the fuck up. If you go to an environment where it's hard, where you're expected to shut the fuck up, and then you go and start talking like a motherfucker and then say, I'm so sorry, I have a hard time doing that, that's you using your autism or your ADHD or your bipolar as a fucking excuse. That's you doing that. If you notice, or if you know the social expectation is to shut the fuck up in the subway and you have a hard time talking, don't go to the fucking subway. And I'm being a little bit harsh about it because
if you have somebody
I
who
have a hard
can't-
time shutting the fuck up. But yet,
If you have somebody who can't control themselves at all, then you might want to think about where you're bringing them.
yeah.
Like, for
Well,
instance,
and that
like,
doesn't mean hide.
if
from
you have
it.
if you have a child who's like level 2 or something, and they,
Yep.
you know,
Or
they
3.
can't be quiet and sit through a play, then you probably shouldn't bring them to the play.
Well, go back over this episode
And yeah,
look at
that's-
the times.
I was gonna say, like, that sucks that your kid can't experience that unless you have, like, I'm sure that I know there are theaters that do showings for people with who are neurodivergent or
Sensory
people
friendly nights.
Yeah, or like people with disabilities, things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about a normal showing. You go
Yeah.
in, and if you know your kid's going to be loud, those obviously you're going to be interrupting the show for everybody.
So here's my boundary on this. All of what I'm saying right now is for medium to low support folks, okay, who want to learn socialization better. I'm not talking about profound or high support need folk. I think they absolutely deserve to be in public. I am not against being in a restaurant and hearing somebody being rather loud anywhere in the restaurant because they deserve to be in public too. That's my stance. I'm going to stick to that. But what I'm saying is this advice about learning social stuff is for those who want to be in public. You need to learn the social rules. And some of the best ways, in my opinion, to learn it is go through, either listen to or read a book about acting. Okay. It's going to talk about some of the things of the internal stuff that people do socially, but also reading plays and doing theater will teach you social stuff a little bit better. Yes, some theater groups are going to shun you. I've had it several times in this area, at least 3 theater groups in this area I won't work with anymore. 1 won't work with me because I'm me. 2, I won't work with them because of the lack of inclusion that I felt because of who I am, and I do things sometimes a bit odd. But I want to bridge this conversation into that of, if you want to learn more about how to be social, find some books about it. And specifically, listen to people who do better than you do at social shit. And ask them questions like, how do you do better at it? Where did you learn to socialize? That way you don't have to go through the trial and error of learning it yourself. Make it quicker for yourself. Learn from somebody else who did it already. I hear far too many young autistic people. And when I say young, I don't mean they got diagnosed yesterday, but they're 65. I mean young. I hear far too many young autistic people talk about, oh, there's social stuff. It's so silly. Whether it's silly or not, you still got to fucking learn it. And you got to know how to do it, because you need to make connections with people to get what you want out of life. Nobody can go through life by themselves. Nobody can go through life without other people.
I do think that, like, the double empathy thing is the thing. I think that, especially if you work with the public, like, I think that there needs to be more resources and information available for police officers or anybody who works with the public when it comes to autism.
I agree.
Or if you work for a major corporation.
I agree.
Senior leadership should be required to try to understand neurodivergence a little bit better, because you're going to have employees, and it's not a one-way street. It can't always just be neurodivergent people having to adapt to others. They should also, there should be some mutual understanding there where they give you a little bit of leeway, or they try to be more understanding and all that.
Steve, I believe very strongly that you got to control what you can control. And anybody who's listening to this show, that's something they can control. They can't control the CEO. They can't control the cops. We can all try to advocate for those people to learn better, but we can't control that all that well. We can't push that. I agree with you that all those people need to learn stuff too. But what do we have control over? Our ability to learn and grow and get better. Now, if it sounds like I'm telling people to mask more, well, that's how you heard it. That's not what I said. I think you need to learn it, and I think you need to understand why it exists and what it's
there's
there
a difference
for.
between masking and adapting your behavior.
I agree.
Because,
but some people are going to hear what I just said and go, he's trying to say we shouldn't unmask.
Because everybody adapts their behavior over time, whether they're
100%.
autistic or not. You adapt over time
Absolutely.
based on what's socially acceptable. Like, a child doesn't know what's socially acceptable and what's not. You change over time based on what your parents teach you or others teach you, or if your peers make fun of you because you're doing something inappropriate.
Or the trial and error of being shamed into doing
like,
things a certain
all
way.
kids will do stupid shit and until they learn not to do it.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as masking who you are.
No.
I used to use that example a million times, and I'll use it again, of me getting too close to people when I talk to them. I don't think it's masking that I don't get super close to people when I talk to them. I just altered my behavior, became aware of it, and now I don't even think about it anymore.
And differentiate between the two. What is your personality, who you are, and the shit you're doing that's causing people to not want to be around you.
Me talking extremely close to people is not my personality.
To others.
Right. But I didn't even notice I was doing it until people pointed it out.
Right.
I was like, oh yeah, I do kind of get close to people, and but until somebody pointed it out, I didn't even notice I was doing it.
So the reason why I'm trying to bridge it is because I hear it often. And at times, people don't understand the perspective I'm coming from with it, because either I'm saying it in a Facebook group and I'm not doing it on the Spectrum account, or I'm on TikTok, not on the podcast account, but on my personal account. And people go, what do you know? You don't deal with autism. Well, I do. And whether I experience autism or not, it's not bad advice to seek out to learn it.
That's
funny.
funny.
And it's not picking and choosing, by the way, what to follow and what not to follow. You need to understand why it's there. And whether you agree with it or not, that's the way others play.
When I comment on my personal accounts on things, people think I'm full of shit. It's like that one I just told you about earlier today. It annoyed me, where it's like, I guess I seem like an insensitive jerk, but this lady posted a picture of her autistic son, and he's dressed in like a tuxedo or whatever, and he's going to prom, and it was like, oh, do yourself a favor and make sure you dance with an autistic. If you see a kid like this, make sure you dance with them or whatever. Like basically saying you should go up and ask the autistic kids to dance so they don't feel left out. My reaction to that was like, oh, great, a pity dance.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people were basically saying that, what do I know? You're a stupid asshole. Fuck you. You're a piece of shit. You have no empathy. And I'm like, actually, I'm saying the opposite is true. Is that like you're saying that people should go dance with somebody they don't want to dance with to make themselves feel better for doing something for somebody. Because they're not doing it because they actually want to. Yeah. Now, I can't say 100%. Like, I'm sure maybe some people would actually want to go dance with the kid.
Sure.
But it's just like nobody wants to be the one who's given attention out of pity.
Right.
Like, what if that
pity
kid,
the
maybe,
motherfucker.
I don't know what this kid's like needs were and all that stuff. I have no idea. I don't know this kid. He looked like somebody who was probably level 2 or something. I don't know. But let's say just based on like his mannerisms and the video of him, he was kind of like looked very socially awkward, kind of just standing there. But like, what if this kid, it's like I've used the example with like, if you let, not everybody who has Down syndrome has a severe intellectual disability, right? And then like, you'll see these videos where they let the kid with Down syndrome score like a free touchdown or something like that, or they'll let them score like a basket shot, but it's fake. They're just letting him do it.
Right.
Like that kid does not necessarily have a severe intellectual disability. Even if they do, it doesn't mean at some point they won't realize that was all fake.
Yeah.
And how would you feel if you realized that people were pretending and being fake to you just so they could feel good about themselves?
Right. Because that's what it's for. It's to make them feel good about themselves, not the person with.
Oh,
Down
we're doing
syndrome or
such a nice
autism.
thing for this person.
Yeah. You're doing it for you. Shut the fuck
I did
up.
see the opposite, which was funny, which is, I think I sent it to you a while ago. There was a kid who was autistic and he was part of a basketball team and they never let him play. And then they let him into one game, like the end of the season, and he ended up scoring like 10 baskets in a row. And he was actually really good, and they never let him play.
Nice.
And everybody was freaking out because he did so well. Yeah. But the thing is, like, you never gave him a chance to begin with because he's the weird, awkward, autistic kid. But then he ends up like destroying everybody on the court.
On the pity.
Because but he actually performed. They weren't letting him score. He actually did score.
That actually leads me to think about like the amount of people who work with autistic folks and immediately talk down to them. They don't think they're talking down to them, but they're immediately talking down to them. Like, fuck off. So in the field of
I feel the same way
mental
about
health
children.
and stuff. Yeah, well,
Like if I'm not
That's
a
what
father, but if I had
was about
kids,
to
like I wouldn't
get to.
talk down to my kids.
Yeah.
I would talk to them like they're an adult, just age appropriate. But
So when it comes to like people who help people who have autism and whatnot, higher support need autistic people, they always say presumed competence, right? Assume they can do something, right? But so often I see these fucking professionals and they're just talking down to the person, but yet they're talking and saying,
Is
well, we need to
somebody
presume
hungry?
They're able, and then they do that shit. Fuck that. Stop it. Like I don't. I have a client, and I do not talk down to this person at fucking all.
You want some
Like,
French
I talk to him
fries,
as if
huh?
I talk to Steve. I just don't swear as much.
you want a French fry?
Yeah, like what the fuck?
You want some beige food?
Oh, do you want me to help you lift a spoon? Here we go. Let me hold it for you. No, fuck hand over hand. Anyway, sorry. That's anyway.
Yeah,
but
we went off the rails a
that's-
little bit.
That's why, but I wanted to bridge the two of those because we do as autistic people, we do have deficits. And I know there's a bunch of people who are autistic who don't like hearing that, but we do have some deficits. Things we can work on, things we can get better at, but we have to put in the effort to do it. And as Steve said, yes, the rest of the world has to come some of the way as well, but we can't control that. We can't control how our boss is going to take us. We can't control how the blind date is going to take us when we step up to it, but we can control us. We can do something to try to benefit ourselves. And there's only so much we can do, you're right, but we should do as much as we can do. To learn a little bit better. Maybe we can do a little bit better. Maybe we can get what we want to get out of life if we at least put in that effort. And I'm not saying you're not putting in effort every fucking day, but maybe the effort you're putting in is in the wrong fucking direction. Who knows? I just wanted to bridge the two of those.
I think we need to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I will say, if anybody is interested in any of my writing or scripts, let me know and comment, and maybe I'll send you something.
And if you want to pay me to act, feel free to send me. Actually, no, but I can tell you the acting books, like I mentioned before. I can recommend.
I'm going to
book or two.
officially copyright some of my scripts with the copyright office. So, like, they're poor man's copywritten right now because I have proof of creation and all that. But I want to get them officially copyrighted so I can license them out somewhere. But if anybody wants to read anything, I don't mind sending people a copy of my scripts.
So support autistic writers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Share, like, tell your friends, get the word out there better about us if you like our show. And if you don't like our show, tell people you don't
Don't
like
forget. Pee, pee, pee.